this week's guest is a guy who went from medical device sales into real estate. So he is my homeboy. Bronson Hill is the managing member of Bronson Equity, a general partner in over 2,500 multifamily units, valued at more than $250 million. He hosts the Mailbox Money Show, where he explores the investor mindset and has raised over $50 million for real estate and private equity ventures. He's the author of the best-selling book, Fire Yourself, Replace Your Working Income with Passive Income in 3 years or less. Bronson is a sought-after keynote speaker and founder of the Wealth Forum, a mastermind for affluent investors. He's been featured on top podcasts like this one, and major events alongside Ken McElroy. Here is Bronson Hill. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power Up Your Life podcast, powered by GoBundance Women. I'm Mandy McAllister.
And I'm Kelly Resendez.
And today we have a really brilliant real estate investor, Bronson Hill. Hi, Bronson.
Hey, Mandy, Kelly, great to be with you guys. And it's always great having great conversations about real estate and talking specifically to entrepreneurs.
I love it. I'm excited to dig in, and I feel like we've grown up together from med device into real estate. So before we end up getting into all of the things, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey in your own words?
Yeah, so I was a well-paid medical sales professional. I was making over $200,000 a year, and I had a great quality of life in the sense that I, worked 8 to 5 or 7 to 5 most days, and it was consistent work. But the thing I really didn't have is what a lot of people want, is the ability to take time off, the ability to have not just financial freedom, but time freedom. And there's this saying that, unless you learn how to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. Warren Buffett said that. And it really got me thinking about what are ways that are not, there's a lot of things people talk about that they think are passive income that are really not, such as I own a rental house, I have an online business, I do options trading online, but all this stuff takes work and it's not always scalable. It takes up more time. It actually creates another job for you. So as I started to learn about that process, I was able to basically cover my living expenses and then my income through other forms of passive income. And so it's been really rewarding to do that for myself, as well as teach a lot of other people to be able to do that. So we've raised now over $50 million to do different real estate and other private equity projects. And I just love being able to help people get where they want to go on their financial goals.
And then fire themselves. I love everything about that title.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I had the epiphany that I didn't go to medical school because I didn't want to be on call. And then I ended up on call for a med device job. So how do I buy my way out of that so that I can be at, school field trips with my kids? So it's so incredibly aligned. Going bigger in real estate, there's a big difference between managing a book of business with a med device company and then moving into, $250 million worth of real estate, So along that travels, I'm certain that there was a time that you felt stuck. So when you feel stuck, when you don't know what to do next, how do you get there?
Yeah, so I think often as an entrepreneur you get stuck. If you haven't had a moment where you're waking up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, that's not that uncommon. Hopefully it's not if you set up your business where it continues to get better. But there are seasons you go through where it's like some things happen where it's like, how am I going to make payroll, or what's going to happen? And if you've watched the last few years in real estate, we did a lot of multifamily. Some of those deals went really well. Some of them have not gone very well, right? So some very difficult conversations with investors, some very challenging deals. And so you have a choice in everything. Are you going to let something defeat you, or are you going to allow it to help you get stronger? I talk about this in my book where I had, I was actually investing options, and I had made $20,000 in a couple months. And basically I lost in one day $70,000 through an options trade. Obviously I did zig where I should have zagged and did things correctly. But it was a $70,000 lesson or an education of, okay, I'm not the best options trader, right? There's other things I can do that are a better seat for me. And there's no shame in that. It's just like, oh, there's a lesson there. I can learn that. And so a lot of us, we go through things and we think that failure defines us. But as an entrepreneur, you have to be someone who's willing to make a lot of mistakes and then quickly learn and make adjustments. So when it comes to investing, everything is information. Nothing is this is who I am, but it's just simply just like in your business. Oh, this didn't work. Let's try something different. And that's exactly the same way it works in investing.
Wow, that's incredible. So did you have like mentors, or really, how did you make that transition? Because obviously there's a lot of people listening that are probably interested in real estate investing, which could be a little bit scary to them. Kind of walk us through how you made that shift.
Well, I'd love to say I was just completely self-made. I had no mentors. I just had epiphanies every night. I'd wake up and just have these brilliant ideas, and I was never wrong. But that would not be true. So I've got to actually be honest. Um, yeah, I definitely have had mentors. I had some mentors. There's a saying: when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I had been doing single-family real estate. I had 4 or 5 single-family homes in other states, and my goal was to get to 30. But I realized I was creating for myself another job, as I talked about. And then I had a kind of a relative I hadn't seen in years who said, "Hey, why don't you do multifamily apartments?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have the money." He said, "Well, you can raise the money." So he said, "Read this book, listen to this podcast, go to this event." And I did all those things. Within a short amount of time, I was raising tens of millions of dollars, right? So it's sometimes when you're ready. And again, I took massive action. I did everything I could. I was working kind of almost 2 jobs full time for a little bit, where I was trying to kind of do both. And then, but it really worked for me. So I think that the role of mentors is incredibly powerful. And again, it's rare that I have somebody who says, I come to them and I say, "Hey, will you be my mentor? Will you mentor me?" It's more like I have mentors in different areas of my life. I have mentors for spiritual growth. I have mentors for, finance or business. I have mentors for giving back or legacy. And so I try to find people in my life that are like, or maybe family relationships or things like I can watch, say, well, how can I get better in this area of my life? Because there's that quote, "You're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with." So if you're the smartest and wealthiest and most fit person in your network, it's time to get in a different network, right? It's time to pay to be in the room, such as GoBundance Women. We run a group called the Wealth Forum, which is for high net worth investors, typically 10 to 40 million. We have some that are lower net worth, but in general, people are there because they want to be in the room with people that are ahead of them. And that's really one of the keys to anything, is get in the room with people that are doing things that you want to be doing.
Yeah, yeah. You've got to be around the people doing the thing you want to do, because that's the advice that you want to take, not the guy who bought a rental house and that didn't work out for him. You talk to the people who've done the big thing or bigger things than you. Having worked with so many people to figure out how they're going to fire themselves, and firing yourself as well. I'm curious what you would think are the biggest mistakes that people make on the path to financial freedom.
Well, I think the number one biggest mistake most people make is that they have analysis paralysis. They have a lot of great ideas, but they don't actually take action. And I have this theory that if you have somebody who's a masterful strategist, we know people like this, right? They're just absolutely brilliant. They've got all the ideas. They can literally conversate about anything. They know how, especially with ChatGPT now, you can figure out all the business plans for everything, but they don't take any action and their life doesn't change. But then there's someone who's really, have you ever met somebody you see them and you're like, they're not really that smart or amazing, but they're like 10 times my net worth. Like, how did this person do this? Right. And typically it's because they just simply took action every day. They just literally said, like, this is my goal and here's what I'm doing. And they took consistent action every day and they learned, they made adjustments. So I think that my theory is that life has an action bias. And if I just simply take a little bit of action every day and I keep making adjustments, I will just destroy it. And it's not a competition, but I will just have way, way more progress in my life had I just been somebody who had great ideas and ideated all the time. So I would say for people that are like, I'm interested in changing my life and growing and investing in business, get around people. There's really 2 things that do that. Get around people that are at a different place and, much further along than you, whether that's masterminds, that's conferences, that's groups like yours, subgroups, whatever it is. And then, ask for help, ask for feedback. And the second one really is education. I'm an absolute nerd, and my goal this year is 100 books. I think I'm at 97 books for 2025, and I listen to a lot of them. And yes, that does count. A lot of people say if you listen to books, it doesn't count. It's absolutely counting, because I retain pretty well. But to just be hungry for learning and growth, because it's all been done before, right? It may look different. Maybe we have AI now. There's so many changes happening now, but all this stuff is like, it's a very exciting time to be alive. But it's also important, I think, with books, you get something that you don't get on a podcast or on a YouTube or on some of these other things that are short, more recent form. So I'm a big one of learn as much as you can and get around people and be curious and really try to grow.
Wow, that's amazing. And it is a common theme. We've actually, like, just in the last couple days, like, so many things that you've said, like when the student's ready, the teacher's going to appear, like you can't ever stop learning and growing. So I think you mentioned that you've raised $50 million in syndication funds, which is absolutely incredible. We have people that are listening that are in that same place, whether they're raising capital for their company or for real estate ventures or et cetera. Like, give us some of what you believe is important, because there's more than just connecting with the right people. It's also presenting the right opportunity and then being able to deliver on the results that they really count on. So share a little bit more in that regard.
So the biggest thing that I can say about capital raising is that people think you have to be this sales dog kind of person that you just shake people down, and it kind of have. I mean, that's what we think of when we think of sales, right? That we've got to be this person that is a sales dog kind of guy. I mean, you imagine going to a used car lot, kind of the vibe you get, right? You got to be that kind of person. It's like, oh, I don't like sales. It's like, I don't sell that way. I don't make calls when I have a new deal, right? So what I do is I think of, and this comes from my friend Russ Gray. If you guys haven't had Russ Gray on the show, he's incredible. But he basically says this, that it's the idea of hunting versus farming, right? Hunting is, you can tell when someone's a hunter and they want the sale more than you want the sale, right? And no one wants to be sold. We all want to buy, no one wants to be sold. The difference is a farmer is somebody who's continually planting and sowing and watering. And that, what they'll do is that maybe they have an apple tree, they'll come along the apple, they'll do a little tug on the apple. And if the apple doesn't come off, they don't kind of get both hands, start reefing the thing off, whatever. They just, okay, it's not ready. So they go on to the next one, right? So I think it's like that with people, is people invest when they're ready. And so for me, the farming activity is a show like this. Is we have our own podcast called the Mailbox Money Show. We put out, I'm putting out almost a daily short video every day for YouTube. We do other long form videos. We're putting out my book that I wrote, Fire Yourself. So those are things that I just really want to try to help people to get where they want to go. So if you want to raise money, you've got to think about that quote from Zig Ziglar. You can have everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. If I can make myself valuable to valuable people, meaning these people have money and they have a money problem, not that they don't have money, they have money, they don't know where to invest it. So how can I educate them and just be a support to them? And then what will happen is when the time is right, when the fruit is, they'll start saying, hey, who do I trust? Who do I know? Well, I trust Kelly and Mandy because I've listened to them for months and I know they're amazing and they seem solid. I'll reach out to them. And that's how capital raising works. You have people reach out sometimes years later, several years later. I've been following you for years. I decided to reach out. I'm going to invest with you, right? Or I'm going to refer you to somebody else. And so that's how you build trust, is being somebody who's likable, who's helpful. And then when the time's right, people will decide to come forward and work with you.
Love it. And I want to kind of transition into the operational stuff of real estate, because we do have many real estate investors that listen or invest in syndications. We talked a little bit about things that went sideways. There's no shortage of sideways syndications lately. I'm wondering, from your vantage point, what are some things that separate the really good deals or operators from those that have not found a tremendous level of success, the deals or the operators or both?
Yeah, so I think from an operator standpoint, there's some mistakes that we made where we assumed, rates were going to stay where they were, and a lot of people did as well. And some of these deals didn't make sense, or especially for multifamily, unless you took on bridge debt, you took on shorter term debt. And so when you put 20% down or 30% down, and the value of the property goes down by 40% over 2 years, you're kind of in trouble. A capital call situation or things like that. So I think that debt is very, very important in real estate. Having the right kind of debt, having long term debt is great. And I'm willing now to take on less risk for a lot of deals for things that are more sure. Because a lot of people that I know have been doing this for many years, they'll have kind of like they love, like we have a debt fund now where it's a first position debt fund or debt note fund. And, it's basically 50, 60% loan to value. So if somebody doesn't pay, they lose half their cash and we keep the property, right? So that's a pretty good equation that we like. So being in a safer position. So I've kind of moved more to that side. Also on the other side of that is sometimes there are deals that are more risk, but we know they're more risk, right? We're understanding that, okay, this has a 10x plus or, upside, but we know that there's the higher chance probably this goes to zero, right? So just being aware of kind of where you're at on the spectrum. It is hard to understand where risk is, but I think great operators will really try to say, but through experience, what could possibly happen with rates? What could possibly happen in this deal? What are the things that could go wrong? And that's a great question for investors, is think about for yourself, what's the one or two primary risks of ways this deal could not go well. And then ask the operator when you have a call with them, because you always have a call with an operator, I think, and just ask them, say, well, what do you think is the biggest risk? Because they may tell you something different than what you thought, right? So you'll get an idea. It'll just help you to kind of get a better picture. And no one knows, right? We didn't know that rates would rise faster than over 40 years, the kind of the black swan type of events, but those things happen. And so you have to prepare for those type of things. And again, Warren Buffett's rule as well is, rule number one of investing is don't lose money. Rule number two is don't forget about rule number one. So it's that important to really try to, not only learn from things, but just try to avoid losses whenever possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you from personal experience, the last few years, I've been learning a lot. Like talk a little bit about like your buy box. For a lot of people, we see so many different opportunities and or partnership opportunities. And then we find ourselves getting off focus and doing things that maybe aren't in our expertise yet. And that's normally where I've ended up learning a lot. And so talk a little bit about how you've created your buy box for your company.
Yeah, so it's a question I've asked. I've had over 2,500 one-on-one Zoom calls with high net worth investors over the years, and this is a question I'll ask: is what are your goals? What are your investing goals, or what's more important, cash flow or appreciation? And people typically answer is, oh, I want some of both, or I want some of this, and I need some tax. Like they don't really know exactly what they want. But for a lot of people, for most people, cash flow is really powerful. So we've shifted to do fewer real estate deals because it's hard to find cash flow in real estate now to do things like oil and gas or debt funds that I guess are real estate related or other types of deals that are cash flow related. But it's really important to get clear on what you want, because if you want to leave your job, you have to have cash flow because you got to replace
Yeah.
your living expenses, right? If you're
Mhm.
Uber, well, I know guys worth over $500 million, and he loves cash flow, right? Because it'll cover his expenses. So I think cash flow, I have a strong bias towards that. But I think for us, just like you as well, we get pitched a lot of deals. So what you have to do, and I talk about this in my book, I call it the deal funnel, but it's where you'll get a deal sent to you, and somehow you get on these lists. People find your stuff online, whatever. They send you deals. If you're like me, you say you're an investor, you'll get all these deals from everybody, and then you have to say, well, the deal comes to you first, but really you have to just take a step back and say, well, first of all, what market is this deal in, right? Is it a multifamily deal? Well, what market is it in? Okay, it's in Dallas. Well, what's the submarket in Dallas? What is there growing population in Dallas? Is there, you kind of go through that specific market. You say, does this actually make sense for what is happening now? How many apartments have been delivered in that specific market? And this works in any kind of field. You could use it in self-storage. You could use it in oil and gas. You can use it all different things. Just find out that specific market. Then you go down to the operator. Who's the person who's actually doing this? Who's the team? Is this a rinse and repeat kind of deal? Or is this a totally different type of deal? Or maybe it was great in one market, but this is a Dallas group and this deal is in Tennessee. Well, how are they going to manage that? What does that actually look like? And then you come all the way down finally to say the deal itself. Does this meet my specific goals? Does the deal make sense? How I'm going to make money and how I could potentially lose money. And if it doesn't meet your goals, obviously you can let it go. But we say no to at least 95% of stuff that comes along. But it usually comes down to those things. And then I will say, just as a special caveat, we typically never invest with anybody that we don't know very well, that's been typically at least 5 years either investing with them or somebody we know is invested with them, just because it's really difficult. There's a lot of people out there. I mean, you and I, like, especially Mandy, you guys are in this world, so you know a lot of people. And so there's a lot of reputation stuff. If I've never heard of somebody, if I don't know somebody that knows them, I would never invest with them, right? Because I just don't know them, right? It's going to take me a lot more time to become comfortable versus somebody I know. They speak at conferences. I've heard feedback from their investors. They have a good reputation. We have somebody we just did a deal with, a self-storage deal, a large group, and I've known the guy for 6 years. I've never invested with him, right? We just brought a fund and raised a couple million for him. And I'm really excited for the deal. It's a great project, but it was a very slow process. So I think being slow as an investor is an important way to go.
I so believe that you have to walk before you run. I like to get my feet under me. So I want to get your take on this. The idea of focus versus, really diversifying into things. It sounds like, you went a mile deep into multifamily real estate and then it kind of stopped penciling with the change in rates. And then brought on the fund and went into oil and gas and you just mentioned storage. Tell me, I own a motel and a car wash and some multifamily, and I feel like I'm losing my mind sometimes. I'm curious the strategies that you have of getting the returns of having gone really deep with focus versus that diversifying. How do you keep it all together now that you're invested in a lot of different stuff?
Yeah, lots of therapy. Lots of therapy. That helps me a lot. Just kidding, kind of. So yeah, I think that as an investor, one thing that I love is that, I approach things as a passive investor. We invest passively in deals that we do, and then we bring deals to our investors. I haven't really sat as much in the operator seat on certain deals. Obviously, with the multifamily stuff, I've sat in some of the operator seat there. But being somebody who's more of a capital partner, I've had less day-to-day responsibilities often. And so I had to say, again, what are my goals? What are things that can do it? And then the nice thing about being an investor is you have flexibility. Like, it could be a great time for a multifamily, or it may not be, right? Or maybe a great time I think oil and gas, it's a great time now because it's kind of an out of favor asset. The price of oil is down. When you say, why would you invest when the price is down? I say, well, I think it's a good time to be able to get into it. And also with some of the tax benefits, or just like you kind of look at ways what you should be buying stuff when it's out of favor. I think there was a time a few years ago when multifamily was very much in favor. It was kind of like the beloved child. Now it's kind of the unloved child. So actually, I think it's a great time. The challenge is it doesn't have a lot of cash flow for most situations. So I think, as an investor, it's if you can get crystal clear on what you want. So if your goals are you want to leave your job, you want to sell your business, but you still want to have, 10,000 a month coming in, you've got to figure out ways. Maybe you can't go from 0 to 10,000, but could you go from 0 to 1,000? This year, or 0 to 2,000, just figure over the next 3 to 5 years, what are ways you can grow that number? And if that is the case, then you just find investments that can do that. And I would say some diversity is good. If you're only in oil and gas, you're not really well diversified, even for different operators. If you're only in multifamily, so you got to kind of find different ways to be able to get towards your goal. And there's lots of different things that can do that.
Yeah, very, very true. And it's just, it is diversification. I know for myself, I did diversify out a lot. And then I've really found like my own personal sweet spot is businesses, which I do. And then Mandy on the investment side, we have partnerships. So it's like we leverage one another's strengths when it comes to that kind of thing. So thank you for that. Well, you have absolutely shared so much amazing information today. And I think one of my favorite parts of it is just really just your story and making a decision that you wanted to buy your time back. And that in order to do that, you were going to have to do things simultaneously until you got to that level of expertise. Because I see a lot of people dip into scarcity a little bit in order to be able to do it. And so that's been great. Mandy, what about you?
I love Warren Buffett, and those are quotes that I say all
Yeah.
the time too. So that's thing one. But I wrote down that life has an action bias. I love how you put that. So one thing that's really important to us at GoBundance Women is to serve those who've served us. What is an introduction or a resource that would change the ball game for you, Bronson, so that either Kelly or I or some of our listeners could help serve you?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It's a great opportunity to be able to share. I think, I really love helping people on this path. So if anybody wants to talk about investing, happy to connect on that. I think our Wealth Forum group, we're super excited about it. We've got about 30 people, 25 signed up now for Pasadena on December 12th. So you guys, if you'd like to come, if somebody would like to join, basically we just get high net worth people in the room. We don't pitch anything. It's just simply to try to get that collaboration and get those people together. We've had some amazing things come out of that, from deals we did or deals people passed on, or even just there's the deals that didn't go well, right? And sharing those stories, and then just saying, how do we create a win in areas of our life like legacy, or if we have more than enough, how do we give it to our kids in a way that doesn't spoil them, right? So I think being a part of things like that would be really valuable. But I really appreciate you having me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Wonderful. How would listeners get in touch with you?
Well, I have a free gift for your audience. I wanted to share it with your audience if you guys would be open to that.
Yeah.
We have a gift. It's how to use inflation to your advantage. So these days, people talk inflation's low, but we're seeing everything costs 50 to 100% more than it did 5 years ago. So I've got this guide that I wrote that has some, how to use, real estate, debt, also precious metals, just some unique strategies you probably haven't heard of. It's about 10 pages. And it's if you text the word inflation to the number 33777, we'll go ahead and text that to you for free. So people can go ahead and reach out that way. And that'll get you in touch with some of the stuff that we're working on as well.
So, I mean,
Great.
did
We'll
I
put
hear
that in
that correct? Inflation can be a good thing. Holy moly.
You can make it your friend.
You for
You can
sure
bet
can
that.
align with the powers that be. I love everything about it. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Up Your Life podcast. If you if you know someone who wants to fire themselves, make sure you're sharing this episode. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review, because it really does help us get into the right ears of the right people. If you want to power up your business, go to Power Up Your Life now to look at all the resources that we have to help you do that. And we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bronson.
Thanks, guys.